message, not just to the MOD, but to Gordon Brown. Your government will perish round this war just as Tony Blair perished round this war. It's time to pull the troops out, and it's time to say no more wars, no more imperialist adventures in this region, no troops. Even the American ambassador in Afghanistan today has said they don't want any more troops there. If the American ambassador is saying it, you know they've lost the war. Let's get the troops out now before anybody else is killed.
Thanks very much, Lindsay.
Free Joe Glenton! Troops out now! Free Joe Glenton! Troops out now! Free Joe Glenton! Troops out now! Free Joe!
Well, I'm Veronica Ball, and I will admit I'm a pacifist, and in fact my husband spent most of the Second World War underground because he refused to fight.
Yes.
And I've come here particularly to support Joe, and this is real courage. Killing people does not require courage. Standing up and speaking the truth does. And I've come here in support of Joe. And I think it's outrageous that a political system thinks an appropriate punishment is 10 years in prison because he led a march of protest.
Joe Glenton! Troops out now!
Right, and the Green Party candidate for Oxford. Pete will say a few words. Thank you.
Well, I'm really proud to be here to support Joe Glenton and all the other people in the armed forces who are expressing their opposition to the unjust, unwinnable war in Afghanistan. We stand shoulder to shoulder with all those servicemen and women who are saying no to unjust, illegal, neo-imperial wars. We want a peaceful solution to the problems in Afghanistan. We want social justice for the people of Afghanistan. We want an end to using war as a method for solving political disputes. And to Joe Glenton and all his friends and comrades, all those who support him inside and outside the armed forces, we say, we are on your side. Thank you. We salute you.
Yes.
It's clear that the arrest and detention of Joe Glenton isn't really about the letter of the law. It's actually about the principles that he holds and the very reason that he has spoken out against the war and the very reason that he's refused to fight there. The attempts to silence him is not enough to silence the principles which are bringing these protesters out. It really is a very pathetic attempt by the government to do something to intimidate people, but it's failing, obviously. And while Joe Glenton may be detained indefinitely, there are many, many more soldiers who feel the same way as he does, and there are very many protesters on the streets who feel the same way as he does, and you can't silence everyone.
Well, to support Joe Glenton, I think he's a very courageous man. I mean, they talk a lot about heroes at the moment, people who, men and women who've died, but they're fighting in an illegal war, and Joe Glenton has got the guts to say that and to put his life on the line, really. He faces 10 years imprisonment for the charges they've got against him for deserting, for speaking out against the war, and I just think we should all support him for that.
Well, I mean, it is an outrage that Joe Glenton has been arrested. He's been charged on 7 charges in total, 5 new charges, which, you know, considering that he speaks for the majority of people in this country, and that, according to him and other soldiers, he also represents the opinion of a lot of people in the armed forces. I mean, it's desperate stuff, really, and I think it shows that the military top brass are very, very worried about the morale amongst the troops and about a growing feeling amongst the troops that they really shouldn't be there in the first place. So I think this is all about damage limitation on their part, and I think as well that Joe is a very courageous guy to go through with this. Joseph Healy, who's a parliamentary candidate from the Green Party. Joseph.
I want to read you a message of support from Caroline Lucas, Member of the European Parliament and leader of the Green Party. I would like to express my admiration for your... This is a message to Joe Glenton. I would like to express my admiration for your decision to take a courageous and principled stand against the war in Afghanistan. You have the support of the many people in the UK and abroad who passionately oppose this ongoing conflict, which increasingly appears unwinnable. The US-led invasion of Afghanistan has resulted in a tragic loss of life, an even more dangerous and unstable country, and the installation of a fundamentally corrupt political leadership. Those on both sides continue to lose their lives on a daily basis, while the idea of promoting peace feels very far away. At the very least, the brave men and women who sign up to be sent into conflict, to risk their lives on the front line, deserve to be told the truth about the war they are fighting for and what they are fighting for. Lance Corporal Glenton, I hope your heroic resistance to this reckless and misguided foreign policy played out in Afghanistan will increase the pressure on the UK government to accelerate an exit strategy and to withdraw our troops.
Incredible situation where the politicians are just ignoring the voice of the people on this question. They call it a war for democracy, but where's the democracy at home? No one's denying that the majority of people want the troops to come back, and yet the politicians carry on regardless. And now Gordon Brown's even talking about sending more troops. I mean, this is an absolute outrage, and we're going to do everything we can to make sure that it's stopped as soon as possible, and that the troops are brought home, and we end the killing.
My thoughts go with them. I think they've been very, very brave. Joe should be treated as a hero, not locked up in prison. Anybody from the military seems to be able to talk to the media as long as they're pro-war. As soon as they're anti-war, that's when they get locked up, and that is not fair. And Joe Glenton should be released immediately, and we hope this picket will have done something to bring that about.
The charade of the elections recently shows that there isn't a democracy in Afghanistan. That Karzai, as you say, is part of the problem, not part of the solution. It's his regime, put in place by the NATO forces, by the US, that has bred such corruption in Afghan politics. And, you know, the idea that he has now been formally elected in any kind of democratic process is an absolute joke. So there isn't any democracy. Under occupation, there is going to be no democracy in Afghanistan. And really, we have to let the Afghan people decide their own fate, and that means withdrawing the troops.
And Stop the War Coalition recently have soldiers and their families been in contact.
Yeah, many families and some soldiers have been contacting us. It's clear there is a serious amount of anti-war feeling now amongst the military and the military families. So that's an important new front that we've opened up, or that has been opened up against the war. They're going to come down on December the 21st to Downing Street on the Monday before Christmas, and they're going to demand to see Gordon Brown. And we want everyone who can, everyone who's free on December the 21st, to come down and support them.
I want to say that yesterday we marked Armistice Day, and there were many soldiers also in the First World War, including the war poets, who in their time were declared insane or were threatened with execution and were removed to Craig Lockhart Military Hospital for rehabilitation. They were right in their day, and Joe Glenton is right today. So I think it's appropriate that I should read a short poem about the war, which was written by those war poets. It's called Two Sides of War, and it's very appropriate. All wars are planned by older men in council rooms apart, who call for greater armament and map the battle chart. But out along the shattered field where golden dreams turned grey, how very young the faces were where all the dead men lay. Portly and solemn in their pride, the elders cast their vote for this or that or something else that sounds the martial note. But when their sightless eyes stare out beyond life's vanished toys, I've noticed nearly all the dead were hardly more than boys.
He's had people slapping him on the back, he's had people coming up to him and saying, "You said what we think," and that's a fantastic development, and so he's got a lot of support in the armed forces.